Frank, I've been involved in boxing personally since 1997. At no time in that history of boxing has British boxing, in my opinion, been in such a strong position. However, from a broadcaster media perspective, it's probably in its worst position that I can remember. Do you have a view on that?
I do up to a point. I think that the main problem is, as you know, last week Channel 5 basically bowed out the sport, which is bad for the game, that we lost a terrestrial broadcaster. And the two main broadcasters of boxing in this country now are Boxnation and Sky. Boxnation is a dedicated boxing channel, whereas Sky is a multi-sport channel. So, I think it's sad that we haven't got any terrestrial TV, but I've been in the business for a long, long time, for well over nearly 35 years as a licensed promoter. And I've been there when there hasn't been any terrestrial TV, when there's only been one broadcaster. It happened with ITV many years ago. And the people at ITV were good people. Bob Burrows and Trevor East there, they didn't exercise the monopoly as some of these channels would do today.
Do you have any view as to why Channel 5 left boxing?
Probably because it's cheaper for them to put a movie on. I mean, it's as simple as that. We're in a tough economic climate. It doesn't matter what anybody says. This is the toughest recession, certainly in my lifetime, and indeed in most people's lifetime. It's been really bad out there for a lot of people. And when they can cut corners, it's all about looking at the bottom line. They'll look where they can do it from. And, putting on live events is an expensive operation, having to pay for the outside broadcast equipment and so forth. Where you can put a movie on, you just buy the old movie and put it on, and that's it. And obviously you've got to pay the rights fees for the fights. And I think that Tyson Fury is in. I think he's now in New York. So if he's going to have more fights abroad, then that means unless they get the fights on in the afternoon in the States, then they'll be on the early hours. So I don't know whether they see if that's an investment or not. And I don't think James DeGale, from what I'm told, I don't know if it's factual, whether he actually done the business as far as delivering viewers was concerned.
We've seen that Channel 5 are leaving. You've brought up Boxnation, obviously a channel that you have some involvement with. How's it going with Boxnation?
It's been very tough. I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a tough economic climate. We decided to walk away, or I decided to walk away from Sky in August 2011 and do our own thing. It was a very, very expensive operation. A couple of investors who were supposed to have stepped up to the plate disappeared. So basically, the team that was left there had to pull together and find the finance to keep the whole thing going. It's now breaking even. We've got a great team there. We started off as our CEO with Simon Green, who's now become the head of sport for BT. I think they spent well over $1 billion on rights fees up to now on other sports. He's now a non-exec director and is a shareholder in Boxnation. Richard Brooks, he was a former finance director at Sky. He's the chairman. Jim McMahon, who's at Endemol, very, very well respected in the industry. He's now what we call the general manager, and will be taking over Simon's position, I think, probably the next month or so. So we've got a really good team there. We've got good people on board. We've got people, really good experienced broadcasters there with Jim Rosenthal, Jim Rosenthal, Richard Keys, Bunsey, John Rawlings. We've got a real good team there. Some great people behind the scenes like Jim Bentley and the rest of his crew. I mean, they're really good people. So the channel's now on good, stable financial footing. There was an injection of cash that went into it last week, a substantial amount of cash, and there'll be another substantial amount of cash going in May. So much so that the channel's now bought the Mayweather fight, which is taking place on the 4th of May. It's got Amir Khan's next couple of fights, and they'll be making a big announcement this week on another big fight involving a British fighter.
So all the, what it's like, the rumour mill in boxing, so all the purveyors of doom regarding the channel, even those fans of it, they're misled.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we're over the worst. I mean, a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, it really was tough, but we're over that hump now, and it's stabilised, and we're now moving on to the second phase of our business plan. There'll be a launching of an HD channel, which will take place in 5 months' time. So there'll be two channels up then. By then, there'll be the HD channel and the analog channel that's in existence, which is going to be great for the viewers. We're acquiring many other rights and doing other deals with promoters from around the world. So to bring the best from around the world boxing, um, you know, it's tough. And the dooms, the people who want it to fail, I don't even get the logic behind it. I hear Matchroom saying, it's not going to work and it go down the tubes. I mean, where is their mentality to think if there isn't any competition? Do they think that Barney Francis at Sky is going to put his hand in his pocket and give them more money? You just cut it back and cut it back and cut it back. You cut back the money because that's what people do when they got monopolies. The more competition you've got, the better it is for everybody concerned, and most importantly, it's better for the boxers because the boxers will be the people who will benefit in the long term because of the rights fees.
So, assuming that Boxnation is there for the long game, that's good news for all the fans of the sport, and I certainly, from my perspective, agree with the view that we need Boxnation. What can we look forward to, apart from obviously the HD channel that you've said? What else can we look forward to in Boxnation?
Well, it's live fights. I think we had the fight of the year 2 weeks ago. The Bradley fight was just an unbelievable fight. These fights would never seen light of day in the UK. If you was a boxing fan, you'd never have got them. We brought some great fights from around the world over the last 18 months or so, and there'll be more of them. That's what our objective is. It is what it says on the program. It's a dedicated boxing channel. It's there for the boxing fans, and we feel that we know there's a market there. We know that the market can be bigger. We know that we've got to attract now the casual viewers, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're working on.
Now, it's also common knowledge in the marketplace that unfortunately a few boxers have decided to leave your promotional business. This has happened before, as I've heard you say, and many of them in the past have rued the day they left. How do you see that panning out, and do you have any major signings in the pipeline?
First of all, that happens to all promoters. Fighters jump from one side of the street to the other. That's nothing unusual. That's been going on for a number of years. And at the moment, a lot of fighters are getting promises, and there are fighters who are breaching agreements. Ricky Burns, what he's done is wrong. And I would say to Ricky Burns, it's all very well Eddie Hearn saying he's seen the contract that I've got with him and he's satisfied and he thinks that the contract is done and dusted. He's not a lawyer. Ricky Burns should just disregard Alec Morrison, disregard what Hearns is saying, and he should say directly to his solicitor, and people who care about Ricky Burns should say the same thing. What are my percentages of winning the action against me? And they're going to tell him what it is, because that's what I always ask my solicitor. So they're going to know, he'll know what it is. Now, according to them, it's a slam dunk, 100%. Let's see what they say, because I know it's not, and he's going to find out it's not. And it's a great shame. I put a lot of work, effort into Ricky Burns, to not only get him into the #1 spot, to actually deliver him the titles in his hometown, 2 different titles. Worked hard to do that. And I'm very sad that we are where we are, but I believe that at the end of the day, he's been misinformed by people around him. But that's a choice he's made. He's not a baby. He's 29 years of age, so we'll all get on with it and we'll move forward. And the remedy for me will be in damages, and I'm so confident I'll win this case. Regarding George Groves, it was an amicable parting of the ways, and basically because I won the rights to stage the European, he decided that he wanted to move in another direction. It's quite ironic that last Saturday his fight was actually on Boxnation from Germany. It was still on there. And I believe that we'll work together in the future, but he needs to go and do what he wants to do, and then hopefully we can get something together in the future. Who are the other fighters? It's quite a few years ago, I stopped working with Kell Brook. I couldn't work with the father and the interference. It's well documented. The contract was at an end. I chose not to offer him another contract and walked away from it. Up until then, I'd offered him 2 world title fights. He declined them both, and he's still yet 2.5 years later to fight for a world title. That fight, I believe, with Alexander has been postponed, I think, 3 times now. I've not heard anybody saying, that something's untoward there. But this little band of brothers who get on the internet, these internet warriors who do all this stuff and cause the unrest, basically because they don't do their homework, I think helped to cause the split with Burns. But as I say, as far as the situation is with Kell Brooks, he's still not fought for a title. And Tony Bellew, We had one fight left, which was a British title fight. I took action out against him, and I was persuaded by everybody in this office. I mean, everybody. Why do I want to, fight him and then go to court for one fight, which is for a British title fight? Who wants to, why even bother with it? So I chose, and they've taken that as a sign of weakness, and I can assure you it's not. That's how it is. Tony Bellew, I delivered to him his highest purse he's ever had. And they said he earns paying him anymore, and I know he's not. I gave him a world title fight in his home city, in Liverpool, in his home city. The reason he had the needle, the real truth of the matter is because at the end of the day, that I wouldn't have it that he won the fight. Nathan cleverly won that fight in the other man's backyard, won it by a couple of rounds, and he just didn't like the truth of it all. And he wants to listen to backslappers. If Eddie Hearn's telling him that he won that fight, I don't know what planet they're on. He did not win, he did not beat Nathan cleverly. He lost that fight.
Do you think, we've talked about the fighters, we've talked about the current state, we're looking at, we've discussed Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. There's a lot of discussion amongst the new media, as you said, the new media warriors, about the relationship between Matchroom, Eddie, Barry and Sky. It is what it is, but is it good for boxing?
Well, it's good for Matchroom. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they've wound up the contract. They wouldn't have got that if I'd have still been at Sky. There's no way Sky would have given them all the boxing. It would just not have happened. But they made a conscious decision. It certainly wasn't good for Ricky Hatton. He was a very loyal servant to Sky, and it certainly wasn't good for Frank Maloney. He was also a very loyal servant to Sky. But they were discarded, and that tells you the mentality of and the way the world is at the moment. That's how it is. Loyalty counts for nothing. It's the old expression. You want loyalty, buy a dog. It just wasn't good for them, and I don't think it's been good for the sport. Frank Maloney's got some dates now with Boxnation, and he's hopefully he'll continue to do what he's going to do. Boxnation is not just about me. There are a lot of promoters who've had their shows on there to the fans of what British boxing has. The best fights have been on there, bar none in the last year. I don't care what anyone says. There have been great fights on there. But getting back to what you're saying is that Barry Hearn by nature is an accountant. He's been in boxing before, and once that bottom line doesn't pay, he dips out of it. He's not a big investor. He wasn't a big investor in the sport. I've continued to do that. And they make a big thing at the moment, Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, about the fact that my company has lost over the last 2 years, lost £4 million. Well, Leighton Orient, I believe, has lost £6 million over the last 6 years, according to their accounts. £6 million a big loss. Does that mean that Leighton Orient's bust? I don't know whether it's bust or not. I know it's lost £6 million. And when a business is losing money, it's up to directors to either put their hands in their pocket and keep the business going or not. If they don't, they wind the company up. My business, the shareholders of Frank Warren Promotions, which is my family and the directors, put their hands in their pocket and continue to support the business in a bad economic climate. But in the other side of the coin, we've built a TV channel. We've built a successful TV channel and a brand. The biggest fights last year, the fighter who's number one in the Forbes magazine as the biggest earner in the sport, boxed exclusively on Boxnation. A fight last year, and he's doing the same this year. The biggest name in boxing. The biggest fight out there last year, Chisora and Hay, was on Boxnation. And we've got some big fights coming up again this year. So, commitments there. We don't dip in. We're not in it for the short term. It's a long-term gamble. It's a long-term investment. There is money gone into the sport. We had some great supporters helping. Yeah, times have been hard, but they're hard for everybody. And I'll tell you one thing for sure. If somebody's had to wait a couple of weeks later than getting paid exactly on the date, which has happened, they've got paid. None of them have not been paid. And if that's the case, then I apologise. Invariably, they get a bit of extra money if they've had to wait, and more importantly, they're earning more money than they're getting anywhere else in the UK. That is a fact of life. You ask any boxer what they're earning, we're the best payers. There's no doubt about that. But all that's irrelevant. I don't care what the other people are doing. It doesn't mean anything to me. All I've ever done my whole career in this business is focus on what I'm good at doing and delivering. We invest from grassroots level. We give our fighters all the opportunities they can to win world titles. We deliver year after year. We deliver a world champion. We bring world champions. They don't have to go off to the States where where other promoters take a purse from the States, keep the TV money so they make some money, and the fighter's got no home advantage. You know, would Frank Bruno have won the world title against Oliver McCoy if that fight had been in the States? Would Ricky Hatton have beat Costa Azul if the fight had been in the States? You know, he may have done, he may not have done. They're tough fights, home decisions, and home advantages. Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger or any football manager will tell you are important. And that is all about investing in your man, putting your hand in your pocket and making it happen. And sometimes you'll lose money, and hopefully if he's as good a fighter as you think he is, he'll make a lot of money and you'll make some too.
You mentioned briefly the fight from Upton Park, Chisora Hay. That was done under the Luxembourg Federation. It was a great fight. I think it was a credit to the sport of boxing. Two questions regarding that. One is, we're pleased to see that Derek got his his license back with the Border Control. What are the plans for him? And was that a one-off situation with Luxembourg, or how do you view the Luxembourg Border Control situation?
As far as Derek's concerned, I'm delighted he's got his licence back, and it was important to get his licence back because he wants to fight for the British title again. Eventually, so that he wouldn't be able to do that with a Luxembourg licence. So he's back in action. He's on our show on the 20th of April at Wembley. He'll be announcing his opponent this week. So I'm looking forward to him getting back in action. He had a nice break. He's had a string of tough fights. So I'm hoping this year that he gets a couple of wins under his belt, and I'd love to see him in the ring facing up against David Price. I think that's a great fight for the fans. That's one we'd certainly like to deliver. Regarding Luxembourg, they were a joy to work with, a really good organisation, very professional, and who knows in the future what we'll do. We may do, we may not.
Talking about Derek and Derek Chisora and the fight you mentioned as a David Price fight, potentially in the future be one I think all the domestic fans would love to see. David had a tough fight last time out. Do you see that as an upset along the way? Do you see it as a testament that there's an underlying issue there?
I've had my views against David when he turned professional. I mean, in his last fight in the Olympics when he won the bronze medal, which is a great achievement. There were things there that you looked at and you wondered, how he would cope in the professional ranks. But he's had a great start in the professional ranks. He got caught. In heavyweights, one punch can dramatically change a whole fight. But now the fight, if him and Derek Chisora were to happen, and prior to that loss, probably Chisora would be a big underdog. Now I think that's an even money fight, and it's one of those fights that if it does happen, that they can't. One of them can't afford to lose it. It's not about just a defeat. They can't afford to lose, and it will determine who's going to go further. So for me, those type of fights are great for the fans. They're the fights that the fans want to see, and it's a bit like it's two guys who've lost fights. It's a bit like Kessler and Frock. Everybody's talking about that fight, but they're not the best. Best guy is the fella in the States who beat them both. By a head and shoulders. But they're talking about this fight as if they're the two best super middleweights. You don't have to be the best. You can be up there, but the winner of that hopefully will go on and fight Ward again. And the same thing with Derek and David Price. I think the winner of that will get a shot at one of the Klitschko's.
Talking briefly about the Klitschko's, do you think they're both going to carry on fighting?
I don't think they're going to be fighting much longer. I mean, Vladimir still looks pretty solid. I think the older brother, and when I made the fight with Derek Chisora, a lot of people said that Derek didn't have an earthly, and I always felt that work rate and somebody with a big heart work rate would give him a lot of problems. And the only thing lacking with Derek is he didn't have the experience, but he gave him a fright of his life.
Just going back to Boxnation and the broadcast of boxing, there's a lot of comments out there right now that boxing isn't a big enough sport to have a whole channel to itself within the UK. Do you think that's right? Specifically looking at mixed martial arts, amateur boxing, white collar boxing, all these other forms of the genre. Do you think there's enough boxing for a channel?
Yeah, I mean we're proven there is. I mean we've got excellent excellent subscription at the moment, and we've proved that for a big event we can increase that. We can nearly double what we would have as subscribers. As for amateurs, we've shown a lot of amateur fights. We've shown amateur fights that probably never get a look in anywhere else. And we're doing a couple of shows this year, a couple of amateur shows. But yeah, without a doubt there is. I mean, it's well received, and we're as I say, it's not just on the Sky platform; it's on the Virgin platform. We just developed an app. You can now get it on your phone or your computer. You can stream it. There's many ways you can watch Boxnation, and as I say, we've got some really good fights coming up over the next few months, and I see the subscription levels increasing.
Do you see MMA as a threat? Do you actually like MMA, or do you have any views on it?
Well, they've had some MMA on the channel. From my point of view, I've never been a big fan. I honestly think it's two totally different audiences. Many years ago, they put a Mayweather fight on, and MMA UFC went up against it, and Mayweather did over 1 million buys in the States, roughly $55-60 a pop, and they never announced the UFC figures, which tells you that it obviously come a very second. But it's two different genres, two different audiences altogether.
Just moving on to the amateurs a second, we've got IEBA trying to get going with the World Series of Boxing and also their APB Professional Boxing. Is that going to work?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things happen over the years. I think it becomes more and more confusing to the fans when you get all these different things happening. Up to now, it doesn't seem to have captured the public's imagination. Most of these tournaments are going on in small places like York Hall, so it doesn't seem that they're grabbing the live fan. I think it's ESPN has shown some of the fights. Yeah, they're decent little fights, but it is what it is. It's not it's not world championship boxing, and maybe there's a place for it. Who knows? And they've certainly got some money. They've got a lot of money to put in it, but boxing is not always about who's had the biggest amount of money to put into the sport. You've got to have some knowledge as well. And people are very fickle how they spend their money. They're hard on cash these days. A lot of things have changed. I think prize fighters run its course. I'm not a big fan of it anyway because there's no great fighters come out of prize fighter who's won it. No world champions come out of it. It's been going for quite a while now. And it's become a bit of a tired format where you've got old fighters. I mean, Audley Harrison won the last one. That tells you all you need to know about it. So from my point of view, that money, I'd much just rather see the money that's invested in prize fighter invested actually into boxers' careers who are going to go somewhere and going to win a world title. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but there isn't. Boxing is what it is. You need a great fight. You need a great crowd, and in a big venue. That's what the fans want. They always want to see the big fights. All the other trimmings and all the however bullshit you want to talk and how you want to build up. That is what it is. The public are not stupid. They want to see the big fights.
Anthony Joshua, the super heavyweight Olympic gold medalist, says he's going to make an announcement this week of his plans. Do you have any inklings into that?
No, I haven't. I sort of spoke to him early days. I've not spoken to him since. They obviously got it in their head what they want to do. So maybe he will make his decision this week. I think he's got, it makes a lot of sense for him to turn professional. I don't see, if he stays amateur, I think that would be a poor career move. The guys that he'll fight over the next year or 2 years will just be a round robin of the people he's already fought. In the Olympic Games, he got a couple of decisions there that were, went his way. He may not have got those again if they'd have been elsewhere. Yet when he fought in Azerbaijan in the World Championships, I thought he was robbed. I thought he won that. I think he's an excellent prospect, and I think if he's got the proper people around him and the proper guidance, I think he could definitely become a world champion.
Some people are saying that with respect to the marketing of our sport, boxing, one of the main issues is that there is no umbrella organisation sort of fighting for our rights. So, for example, if you look at UFC or mixed martial arts, really there's UFC and everything else. And UFC controls everything within the sport. It's like one promoter controlling the whole sport. Within boxing, we have in this country the Board of Control, but they see themselves purely as a regulator, not as a marketer or, let's say, champion of the sport. Champion or marketer of the sport within the UK or globally?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, it's a funny thing. You look at that. If you look globally, you look at the Forbes magazine last year, and you look at the highest paid sportsman in sport, and you think of Beckham, you think of all the American footballers and basketball players, huge, huge players. But the two highest paid sportsmen in the world, in Forbes magazine by far, was Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. And that tells you they are being marketed correctly because they're making, that translates into money for them. And I think the other side of it, if you look, their money that they earn is purely from people who actually do want to see them. It's not endorsements. Floyd Mayweather doesn't have a lot of endorsements because of the problems he's had outside the ring. It's purely for people who put their hand in their pockets on one occasion, because he only fought once last year, on one occasion, put their hands in their pocket and paid for that privilege on pay-per-view TV. So it's there. He's there. I mean, he's out there. He's bigger than all of them.
Frank, coming towards the end of the interview, as you've so eloquently suggested, it's tough out there for everybody. Turn the clock forward a couple of years. Where is Frank Warren going to be? Where is Boxnation going to be? And where is boxing?
Well, what I'm hoping, in a couple of years' time, I'm hoping I can put my feet up a bit and let my two youngsters who are learning the trade very quietly and picking up experience. I hope they can take over the reins a bit. And I'm only 61. I'm not an old. I don't think I'm an old geezer anyway. But I'd like to think like Alex Ferguson's still cracking away at 71 and doing well. And I'm sure I can do the same. I think knowledge is a very important thing in boxing. And I don't think I'm a bad judge of a fight. I don't think I'm bad at what I do. So I don't see myself. I haven't lost my enthusiasm for it. That's for sure. So I'm hoping I'm still going to be involved in it. As for Boxnation, I think Boxnation actually will go from strength to strength, and I'm hoping over the next couple of years it'll be franchised out and be rolled out to other territories. We're talking to people in a couple of countries at the moment, Kazakhstan, and a couple of Far East companies who hopefully will take the franchise of it. So that I hope will happen. We've got a very intriguing situation as well happening in the UK this year. We'd be interested to see where we are in a couple of years with BT. They're in sport. They're a significant company. They make roughly $1.5 billion a year, so they're no slouches. They're committed to sport, so that can only be good for hopefully for boxing as well. And we've got one of our directors, Simon Green, is the head of sport for BT. So hopefully we'll be doing some stuff with him in the future with Boxnation.
Frank Warren, thank you very much.
Thank you.